Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us today for our GPM Experience series of work chats. And I know over the last few weeks, we've been having some interesting chats and discussions with adventurers, explorers, entrepreneurs. So from Inga Solheim, who took Prince Harry to the North Pole, and to Piers Linney from Dragon's Den. I think today we've got someone that's combining both the adventurer, explorer, and the entrepreneurial side of business all in one. So I think, and as many people have called you the real life Iron Man, but Richard Browning, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
But it's, yes, I mean, it's such a fascinating journey you've had to now. And I think that we're all keen to understand how this all came to being. So can you give us a bit of an insight into your career, how this all kind of came about from an everyday desk job to what you're doing today?
Yeah, it does require a little bit of explanation, doesn't it? Yeah, so I was an oil trader originally with BP. I spent 16 years in that world, obviously driving a desk and running a trading book, but also traveling a lot, which is very, very fun. But also I spent about 6 years in the British Royal Marines Reserve, which is an important part of this journey because it taught me a lot about kind of human capability. How far you can push your mind and body. It sounds corny to say it, but it sure does do that. And then my whole family background was in the world of aviation and aeronautics and building things and stuff. And I guess I suppressed that part of my past for most of my career. And then so about 4 years ago, having spent 16 years in the oil industry, I started hatching this idea that if you combine that passion for human capability, isn't it amazing really when you think about what people can be taught to do? You know, the human body and mind is a mad machine, to be honest. Wouldn't it be cool if you could add a bit of horsepower to that cool machine and see if you can get off the ground and then learn to control and manipulate and balance it without relying on a computer and a gyro and all that sort of stuff? You know, a bit like a bicycle is pretty awesome when you think about it. How the hell does that really work? And we just take it for granted. So I started playing around, and in 2016 bought one little jet engine. It cost me quite a bit of money, but I sort of backed myself to have a crazy go at this idea. And it just scaled over about 8 months, all in the evenings, weekends, and free time. And I got to the point where November that year, I managed to do the first flight. It was pretty crude and wobbly, and you can see all this on our Take on Gravity Instagram, or particularly the YouTube. We're putting a huge amount onto YouTube now because of the lockdown. We just doubled in size in like 10 days, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's all been a bit crazy with that, right? So I'll make sure we share that link with everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's Gravity Industries. But on there, you can see an example of then the very first wobbly flight with even engines on the back of my legs. We then refined it because that was a silly idea, but it worked. We refined it over that winter and then launched Gravity as a company in April 2017. We've done now, up until lockdown, we did 103 events in 30 countries, trained 50 clients. We've got a team of 7 pilots who fly. We were about to go and do our first massive big jet suit race in Bermuda in March. There's like a shipping container sitting out there waiting, but unfortunately it's on pause.
I think this is, it's all
like the rest of the world
around a bit. So I mean, what was the point where you kind of went, oh, I think I might need to give up my desk job?
There's a funny story here. So I did warn my very generous employer that there might be some noise out in the press around April 2017, and it went mad. We did like 1 billion impressions. The Wired film and the Red Bull film both went massive. Chris Anderson phoned me up and said, do you want to come and do TED 2017 in like 3 weeks time, which was a massive invitation. Then he said, oh, do you want to fly there as well? And I thought, oh, okay, yeah. I've only flown it in a farmyard down the road, but that's fine. I'll do it in front of Richard Branson and Al Gore and everybody else. Yeah, why not? Great idea. So I did. But on the way there, raised some money as well at a mad event. I can tell you about if you like. But I still had the day job. And then about 2 months later, and I was increasingly just asking for forgiveness and going and doing all these events and just saying, look, guys, this is, I'm sorry, this is interrupting the day job a bit. In the end, I took a career break, and actually formally my career break only actually ended autumn last year. So
was that the point of reality where you went, I definitely can't go back anymore? But I guess by then you'd already taken off, literally.
Oh, I knew within weeks of launching it that this was highly likely to be a major distraction. But I mean, in all seriousness, I had a major hang up about leaving a perfectly good job because my childhood was a bit unfortunate. I lost my father due to a failed entrepreneurial journey. Let's put it that way. So I had a lot of mental baggage around oh, I've got a crazy idea. Let's just go and give up the day job. And, I've got 2 kids and a mortgage and all that sort of stuff. Let's just go and pursue that because that sounds like a good idea. I had a major concern. So in all seriousness,
but do you think that was something that's something, it sounds like it was quite deep within you, quite emotional? And is this a journey you felt you had to go on, like based on your father's history? Or
not consciously, no, but having done probably at least 500 interviews in 4 years, I've listened to myself answer questions and started to derive my own self-Oprah moment around how actually, without getting too deep around it, I am on an unfulfilled ambition journey. I saw my father struggle constantly when I was a kid and never quite get his entrepreneurial journey over the line, despite technically doing everything he could. It was all the boring stuff around the legal and the financial and the PR and the marketing, all the other things that those of us who run businesses know consume a disproportionate amount of time and distract from the core nub of what it is you're doing that's really what you're passionate about. He just didn't get that over the line. And so in a way, I always had a desire to set my own business up, go on my own crazy journey. And that's probably why I joined the Marines as well, to sort of, in a physical way, of just set myself a goal and struggle my way through trying to drag it over the line. In summary,
so do you think you've always been pushing yourself? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, you go.
Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay, but yeah. So you've always pushed yourself to your limits then, I guess, physically, mentally. That's been something that you've wanted to do. The Marines seem like that's a place that started, or have you always, did you want to go on an entrepreneurial journey from when you started out, or was that just something, it's just a crazy idea that led to something you weren't even really thinking of?
I think, and I need to be lying back on a sort of psychologist couch now, which I didn't think was what you did, but anyway, let's do it anyway. I think there is a chunk of whether it's in the physical world of like, can I physically push? I used to do ultramarathons. I used to do all this stuff. If I push myself through a lot of physical barriers, and get through there against all the odds in my mind, not trying to impress anybody else. I'm no champion ultramarathon runner, but in my own mind, according to what I think I can achieve, if I go further than I think I can, and I make good on that ambition, everything will be okay. That's what I was just about to say. In summary, if I get myself through a challenge, everything will be all right. And it's a bit sad. It's driven me in a great way, but it's a bit sad that really deep somewhere in here is like, it'll still be okay with that childhood tragedy. It'll still be okay if I just get it over the line. And I guess that's what's driven me, just to keep trying lots of things. But I don't feel like it's doing me any harm. And I guess, but at the same time, I mean, I feel like that's a negative interpretation. I feel like even before then, I used to just I grew up around my father building and making and breaking things in his workshop. I love the journey of cobbling together things and going, oh my God, it works. I fixed it, or I've built something new. I've fashioned something in a creative way and it didn't exist before, and it's performed a task. And how cool to be able to just see it through a crack in the door, a tiny chink of light that says, oh my God, I think there's a tiny chance I could have a run at making humans fly in a completely ludicrous way. What a cool idea.
Well, you've certainly done that.
yeah. And then see it go into something that's now, it's a profitable business that's scaling into a race series, and we've got tons of military stuff going on. It's a ridiculous journey.
Well, I mean, I guess our viewers are fascinated behind, a lot of our clients are entrepreneurs themselves, and they're doing experiences with us because they love to dream of things like you do every day. And I think that most people want that escape from their desk job, and so they join us on a bit of a mad adventure, but to be living that every day. Exactly.
So same thing. I think we as humans, a large proportion of us are always wondering what's over that next hill, both because no one's been over that hill, but also because you yourself, you want to go on a journey of self-discovery and pushing yourself. We have, lots of clients flying from all over the world in normal circumstances. And you can see they've done everything. I mean, they've raced cars, they've gone, even signed up to go fly to the, to space and all this sort of stuff. They want to go and do something and experience something that no one's ever done before. And genuinely, I mean, you only have to look at the faces of the people on any of the social media of seeing what our clients look like, or even me or one of my pilots look like. It is a euphoric sense of freedom that I have never experienced anywhere else, to just smile, look up, vector downwards, like it's as intuitive as a bicycle. I had Colin Furze over here yesterday, literally the big YouTuber. He learned, again, he was flying around. It'll be out on YouTube in a couple of weeks' time, grinning like a child, just able to go wherever his brain took him. You don't consciously make any choices. You just think, just fly over there.
I think that's, and I think that's the fascinating part about it. And I know, including myself, a lot of us have signed up for Galactic. So I think
There you go.
it's definitely, yeah, one of the others on the list for us all. I mean, taking us back on this journey, what was that point when you were physically, you had it in your hands and you were doing something and you went, this one's going to work. This is actually going to go from something in my shed to this thing is now going to fly, and this is all a bit real now.
Yeah, it was several milestones on that journey. I think, again, like most entrepreneurs, the light bulb moment thing is fairly rare. It's usually you wake up and think, oh my God, this is really actually getting some momentum. And then you struggle to look back at where all the components were that got you to that point. But I'd say the couple of milestones were, one was the very first time holding that jet engine, and realizing that, oh my God, it's just a spongy push. It makes a god awful noise and you don't want to put your face down that end of it, but actually it's really benign. If you just own this, it's just a fire hose of water. In fact, look, I've got one from literally doing a talk 2 minutes ago with a load of kids. There is a jet engine, right? All that comes out of there is just a stream of air very quickly, right? And all it does, it wants to go that way, or let's say that way. And wherever you point it, it'll just push you the other way. It's not trying to rip your arms off. It's as difficult as leaning on a desk. You just lean on them. And I felt all of that. My brain lit up with that the very first time I held that engine in a lane. You can see this on YouTube and Instagram stuff, holding that engine. And I realized I just need more of them. And I need to work out where I put them on my body. And I reckon I can learn to do this. And then the big other milestone was that first flight some 8 months later, still in a farmyard, with one on the back of each leg and 2 on each arm. And I did this first wobbly 6-second flight. And it was just, I landed, I spun around, and you can see on the grainy phone clip, I grinned like an absolute idiot because I knew I've just gone and flown 6 minutes. I haven't crashed. And I know this is the beginning of a whole journey that's just going to go to crazy places.
Yeah, I mean, so it was 8 months from first going online and ordering a rocket on Amazon and to then going, I think I can make this work.
Pretty much, without the Amazon bit, yes. Somebody's just asking, how do you control the thrust there? Because it's kind of related to what we're talking about. Yeah. So actually, you squeeze the trigger, it's like a gun trigger, and you feel the thrust build and build and build, and you feel it just pushing you and lifting you, right? And all you do is wait until it stops accelerating, and you preset it to a thrust level that's about right for your weight and the air temperature and all these boring things. But as the thrust starts to lift you, you flare your arms out, and then you feel it not lifting you anymore, because guess what? The thrust is going to the sides. You wait until it finishes accelerating, then in your own time, start lowering your arms. And you can imagine there's more and more thrust going downwards, and you just get lighter and lighter and lighter until you just drift up. And then when you're going to come down, flare your arms again and come down again. If you think like a high school physics problem of X, Y, Z thrust, you're controlling the vertical bit really finely like that. And when you're in the air, all the rest is just intuitive. You know, if I point one that way, you go that way. It's really strange. Very hard to describe. As hard to describe as learning to ride a bike for somebody who's never seen a bicycle.
Yeah, I guess it's teaching an alien how to do things for the first time. I mean, I'm sure we'll go on and discuss that later too, as we learn how we might be able to do this. But I mean, so then when was the point when you realized this is a commercial reality? You must have started getting a huge amount of press at some point, and then you went, well, we can keep flying this around and getting loads of content, and then I guess this is going to start to turn into something crazy.
Yeah, you're spot on. So I did this with no idea of anything to do with anything commercial whatsoever. It's all genuinely
always the best way.
Yeah, it was an innocent foray into something that I just thought would be cool. Now, there was a moment when I was able to do these wobbly few second flights, and my mother-in-law, bless her, came up to see what the hell I was doing. You know, my wife's been very supportive, you know, but did wonder what I was doing originally, but very supportive. And she came up and to this little remote farmyard, and I did this demo flight, and I landed. I was like, stowed the engines, and she just came up to me, didn't say anything. She had a tear in her eye, and she just gave me a hug and just said, "Oh my God, I get it." And I thought, geez, she's not the core demographic that I might maybe guess would be up for 1,000 horsepower, really noisy, loud, fiery jet suit. And she got it, and she just suddenly made me think, oh my God, I think people might really kind of connect with this. I'm in the middle of this. I like it, but I don't want to assume anybody else does. But there's something innate into every human being, I think, or most human beings, when they look up and see the birds, and they look up at the sky and they think about this force of gravity is holding us all down all the time. And unless you're skydiving, free falling, all that sort of stuff, you are always beholden to that force. Well, no, when you're flying in one of these suits, you don't have that force anymore. You can go in entire 3-dimensional space. And there's something also mad when you watch this. Not only got the visceral punch of 1,000 horsepower kind of reverberating your insides, like at a Formula One race. I mean, isn't that amazing when they go past the pit wall? There's something primeval in you goes, oh, geez, that's mad.
Oh, it's sad. I wish I could say yes, but it used to be. I still remember those early days.
Well, okay, remember the first time, right? The first time. And the first time if you ever go to a drag race, oh, that's even more insane. You've been to one of those where the top fuel cars past? That's like somebody's punched you in the guts. That's amazing. Anyway, you get a bit of that in a good way. But also the human being, as they come screaming towards you, the frontal profile, it just looks like a human suspended there. Genuinely, your brain reacts in almost like an autistic way. It just goes, no, I'm not accepting it, can't work, doesn't work. And you just can't consume it. And it's just amazing. We have this profound effect. This is why we're building the race series, because it's even more insane when you've got half a dozen pilots all racing around each other. That looks just
insane. Well, that we'll definitely come on to for sure. I mean, so how was this launch process like when you went from going like, okay, we're going to tell people what we're doing? How did you work out how you were going to do that?
Yeah, because I kept all of this secret because I was a respectable professional in an upstanding career, in an upstanding industry, and and I know what people are like. If you just messed around with this, put this all on YouTube, and then not really got anywhere, you've got to. I don't mind showing people the fails, and we share them all the time. But I've got to have got somewhere to make the fails kind of worth watching. Otherwise, it's just sad, right? I mean, so I kept it all secret. Also, that turned out to be gold from a patenting point of view. We couldn't have patented all of this otherwise if we hadn't. I thought, gosh, having been able to fly, I thought, right, so what do we do? We got to package it up. And arguably, this was a more difficult process in some ways than actually building the jet suit. How do you do exactly your question? What do you do with this? What even is this? Is this a new form of public transport, or is this entertainment, or is it special forces, or is it, I don't know. So we just thought, you know what, let's reveal it. Let's reveal it with Wired and Red Bull as two brands that between them entirely catapult us into the direction of slightly mysterious. I mean, look at where I am. I mean, slightly mysterious Batcave, a little bit of Tony Stark. Are we doing loads of special forces stuff? Well, I can't possibly confirm or deny. I have just mentioned some of it. And try and just set the scene in the right way in the hope that the public perception is not Daily Mail, idiot, British nutter trying to burn himself to the ground in his shed, right? Yeah. Because I didn't think that was fair, but they could happily write that and I would be done. So yeah, we did that and they worked great. And then by just leapfrogging from event for something with Zuckerberg to Bezos to Musk to Branson to all of these people, it's been amazing to have them resonate with our journey. And then things like the military, I mean, Christ, I flew around in my green beret from the Royal Marines. I did laps of the aircraft carrier off the coast of Washington. We just recently put that edit up on our YouTube channel at Gravity Industries. And I mean, what a ridiculous privilege. That was a £3 billion aircraft carrier with a couple of $100 million F-35 sprinkled in for good measure. And the only thing that all the generals and Pentagon officials were talking about was me having flown in as a surprise to terrify them on their shuttle vessels that they came in to visit. I mean, who gets the chance to do that? We've done the Ableton Air Show, we've done the Farnborough Air Show, we've done all of these high-end things. I've done, baseball stadium openings in Japan, car launches in China.
And I guess when the military take you seriously, you start to think, well, if they're thinking about it, then it's a serious bit of kit.
Right. I mean, what a journey from a farmyard messing around with a lot of zip ties. But we all know, though, really, that actually a lot of the origins of seemingly mature, sensible technology often start in that way. But still, going on that journey is quite humbling. And it's been I want to say this is an important point because you can imagine that we're very good at sort of R&D, exploring, playing with things. I mean, look, that printer just finished in my last interview sitting over there, as me printing these things, which are experimental intake covers to reduce some of the noise, because it's one of the things we're doing in lockdown.
I guess that your 3D printer must get a lot of use, because I imagine that everything's a new idea.
Yes, it is. Yes, indeed. And actually it was quite fun at the beginning of this COVID nightmare. We actually printed over 120 face visors for the NHS with the machine, which is a great quick pivot to try and help. Luckily, they're in a better place now, so we don't have to keep up with it so much. But yeah, our journey has been very much not only an exploration from a technical point of view, like you'd imagine, trying things, failing, recovering, making failure safe, all that stuff. But from a commercial point of view, exactly the same. By getting out there and doing events all over the world, we can just see what works with people and what has impact. And so, yeah, we've discovered our way to a really interesting business model, and it's been a profitable company for 3 years.
Well, I mean, I guess everyone's fascinated by that entrepreneurial journey. Like, where, and of course, the key skill of being about an entrepreneur is failing, I guess, and
Yeah.
then learning from it. So, I mean, what's been your biggest failing so far? What have you learned along this journey?
Yeah, I mean, failure for us can mean falling from a great height and doing yourself a great mischief, which is what
Literally,
we
yeah.
aim not to do. So failure to us is something to be taken extremely seriously, and everything we do, as far as possible, we try and make that failure recoverable. So from a safety point of view, obviously, but also from a reputation and a financial point of view as well, because we're on a sort of uncharted journey. You have to be very cautious with everything you try. Yeah, failures. I mean, I've got again, there's some videos on the YouTube, but I'm going to put some more up at some point. We've got a lot of interesting fails, falling usually from a few feet onto the ground. It's the best way to learn as long as you can get back up again. Yeah, I would say our biggest sort of challenges and learnings have been how do you attach that thrust in a way that's safe and safe and controllable. It's probably the biggest thing. And the second biggest challenge has been actually building the brand around all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what's been did you realize at some point you didn't have enough rocket engines and enough, or you couldn't get to the right, like at some point I guess scaling what you had and trying to understand how to scale a business that had no comparables that you could go, oh, this is what people do in this industry.
Yeah, difficult, right? So all you can do is make your best guess and then work out what's the worst that can happen and survive that if it happens and keep exploring. Yeah, I mean, events and teaching people to fly and scaling the race series and doing media things and car launches and other big, commercial events and doing military stuff and search and rescue. All of those have been our sort of portfolio. Growing our YouTube has been a fun thing because that helps build the audience towards the race series. But all of that really, it's all been a big voyage of exploration and see what works.
And then, so how did you go about getting the funding for this? At what point do you go, hi, do you want to invest into this crazy idea that I can get humans to fly? Like,
yeah.
At what point do people start taking you seriously? And did people just turn you away at one point, or did you not need it and you kind of funded yourself? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, this is another unusual story. So I funded the point to get the first flight done myself. So I did it extremely cheaply. I used the throttle trigger was the trigger from an electric drill. I used to use when you take a toddler for a walk, you can stick them in a backpack on your back, baby carrier thing. I used the frames from those to carry the engine and the fuel tanks. And then I had the climbing harness structure built through that. But I used to use those because it's just really relatively cheap and quick. So I'm a master of cheap and simple bootstrapping. Yeah. But then I connected with the guy who had made his millions in PR and marketing and media and all the things that an oil trader knows nothing about, right? And he just threw in 100 grand as a bit of a punt. This is in the lead up to the April launch. He bought about 20% of the company, and it was more the fact that, if he believes in it, I think I'm feeling increasingly confident about going it alone down this psychological nightmare journey of, oh my God, I'm reliving my father's nightmare of a journey. So that was really valuable. We spent his money on things like PR and patenting and lots of boring things. Launched the company, it went insane. I got on the plane to go and do the TED Talk, and I stopped off in San Francisco to stop off with a little group called Boost VC, run by Adam Draper. His father, Tim Draper, is one of the most famous of Silicon Valley VCs. I didn't know even at the time, didn't have time to even research it. All I wanted to do is fly successfully in their parking lot in San Mateo and then pack up again and go to TED and not fall over in front of Richard Branson. And the whole world.
So this is your practice run?
Yes. So get the practice run done. There's a whole longer story around. I went there, literally all packed into check-in suitcases, but I had to repack the cases on Terminal 5's kind of concourse because I just had the suitcases were overweight. I didn't even know what I was doing. I had to buy an extra suitcase at the airport, pack all my Jet2 stuff in. I couldn't even believe they let me do it. And now we've done 100 events around the world. Anyway, I knew none of this. This is literally making it up as you go along.
Yeah, you could put some jets on a plane and then ship them.
Yeah. Well, it's because no one's been stupid enough to even ask to do that before, so there wasn't a rule to say you couldn't. Anyway, I did this demo, landed it, felt very pleased. It went okay. I had one failed start, which was nightmarish for about 20 seconds, but no one really noticed. Quickly go again, fine. Landed it. Tim and Adam rushed up, and they lost their minds. Completely lost their minds. It was the first ever demo I'd ever done, really. And Tim got $100 bill out and said, look, thank you for cleaning out my parking lot. This is your first revenue, because it was blew shit everywhere, right? And then he chatted to Adam for like literally 20 seconds, then came back and said to me, look, this is the most epic thing we've ever seen. We believe in the be your own superhero ethos of setting up startups and whatever. We have to be part of this. How do you fancy $500,000 for 10%? And I quickly put my trader hat on and thought, geez, I didn't have this in my mind. Let's haggle. You've got to haggle. How about £500,000, which I think is more like $640,000 at the time. Anyway, done. Signed it on the $100 bill, gave me the $100 bill and shook my hand, signed, then done that, got on a plane and went to Vancouver.
What a story.
That was my VC round. And I haven't raised any money since.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a unique one.
And just do the maths quickly. The guy who punted 100 grand for 10% 4 weeks earlier, I just got valued at $6.5 million.
Yeah.
4 weeks later. So he did all right.
So you're keeping investors happy then, at least.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, and that was $6.5 million in the first event in the car park in San Francisco 3 years, 100 events ago, before we had any of what I'm surrounded by now. So yeah, it's been an unusual journey. But like you said, it's funny when you set up a business not to make money, you just set it up because you're passionate about it. It's probably a much better way of doing it.
I mean, I think that's quite a lot of people's entrepreneurial journeys. And certainly I didn't think that flying down to Antarctica or doing trips around the world and from submarines and God knows where would actually end up making money. But it seems that we all want these adventures in life. Unfortunately, when you find the people that want to do it, and madly now corporates want to do these types of trips as well. So I mean, I guess that's the thing, right? Is everyone's fascinated, and our clients are the type of people that do this. But how can we do this? So how do we get involved? Tell us, right. What can you do?
So let's pretend for a moment, because it'll be boring keeping mentioning the virus. If we didn't have the virus, what we have is clients come over from all over the world, either to here or LA. We've got a base at Camarillo Airport where we do training. And imagine, again, it's all on social media at Take On Gravity or on YouTube. But imagine a rock climbing rope going up to a truss to a sort of high point. You clip in, you can't even sink lower than knee level. So you just can't go anywhere, right? You can go up. We'll cover that in a minute. You have the jet suit on, you have the briefing, very low power. You realize it's just this most basic kind of shunty push on your arms. It's really simple. It's like leaning forward on a desk. And then you realize if you point your arms that way, you go this way. It's like watching a child start to learn to ride a bike with dad or mum still holding the saddle. And you go through a series of those progressive steps. Some people within 3 goes, less than 5 minutes, have got up to a high enough power level that they vector down and they rise up. We have a remote idle and a remote kill switch. So and it's never happened, but if you just kept going up and you sort of bump your head on the on the belay point, we can stop that. Other than that, you just learn in an entirely safe way. And it just every single time people lose their minds. And if you graduate from that, you can then join us and actually fly these over water and join our race series and hang out with us, a bit like a Formula One team, traveling around the world. That, self-admittedly, the showcase of that, I'm not going to try and sell that too much. The showcase of that will be Bermuda when we're allowed to go and do it. It's going to be mind-blowing. Though that's how you can get involved, or you can organize an event. I myself or one of my team come in, fly in, land, like we did at Cisco Live for 7,000 people indoors in Barcelona. Just before shutdown. I've done these all over the world. I literally flew in, landed, shut down, unclip, and then delivered their closing keynote. That's quite fun.
I bet, absolutely. I think we've done some interesting presentations for a few of our clients, but that would definitely be up there. I mean, but so how easy is it to fly? I think people are like, can I really get the grasp of this? Like, what's the course you go through and the education to get to this point?
It's well, like I described, you have a briefing, you have a demonstration. We often surprise people when they fly in, when they come to our training site. We often have a pilot come flying in alongside the car, which is pretty cool to go, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing that. But yeah, literally it's a briefing. I mean, actually Kumar, a very famous Bollywood guy, he came over and did some with us, and there's a film that's just nearly touched 8 million views on our YouTube. Of him doing it. You'll see some of the briefing and some of the setup. Yeah, you just clip in, and it's down to you to learn it in a weird way. If I tried to sell you a book on learning to ride a bike, it would be a pretty rubbish business, because you can't really, beyond a certain point, you can't really be told. You have to feel it and you relax into it, and then it's just this intuitive thing. But I can tell you it's vastly quicker than learning to rollerblade, snowboard, ski, fly a plane, fly a helicopter, way quicker than all those, literally a day. By the end of the day, nearly everybody is bouncing and hovering about.
Well, that's an impressive feat to be able to say that you've managed to fly, I guess. I mean, I know that you can do that on water with your flyboarding and stuff like that. So I guess, is it anything like that?
Yeah, I'd argue it's easier in some ways. Yeah, it's probably easier. Similar.
So, I mean, going on from that journey, this is like going to be the next Uber? Are people going to be like just flying around everywhere, or how big can this go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important point to say. So we, despite so many people kind of pushing us on this, we are not imagining we are going to be reinventing, human mobility. This is not a sensible way to go to the shops or take the kids to school. It's not, it'd be as sensible as using a Formula One car. You could do for a laugh, but it's just not sensible. It's not a useful use of that technology. At the moment, it is, entertainment. It is pushing the boundaries of kind of science and aviation as to what humans and machines can do. But then let's just think about the entertainment bit. What's the point of Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, and all that stuff, right? They are there to entertain and to inspire, to create advertising platforms as well, if you want to be boring about it. And also leave a trail of usable technology that has other further application. The first motor cars were considered noisy, smelly, and a complete joke compared to a horse. Well, why don't we scale this in form of the mother of all entertainment, visceral, Red Bull meets Formula One, but on your backyard, over water, literally where your flat is overlooking the river, lake, or seafront where you are, and deliver something that looks like it should be a Marvel CGI film, right? Your eyes will not believe what you can see. I mean, we've done this, right? So that's a pretty good ambition. Now, in parallel with that, the military stuff is ridiculous fun, right? Taking off from tanks and warships and all this sort of stuff, and you can have a big debate whether you should do it with the military. To be honest, if we didn't do it with the military, then the military would just copy what we're doing anyway, so we might as well be involved. That's another whole philosophical debate.
Yeah.
And then finally, and by no means last, our power to inspire the next generation, to get, and I've got 11 and 13-year-old boys, to get them to stop looking at an iPad for 5 minutes. You come and fly in and land at their school in a 1,000 horsepower jet suit and literally shut down and then say, hey kids, how you doing? That is the most powerful way of really exciting and motivating people. So, I think our power to do that is really pretty spectacular as well. So I never want to lose sight of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're the real life superhero to them, I guess. But
well, not just me. This is the point, that I've got 7 other pilots and 50 odd clients that can do the same thing. I want this to be more. I don't want this to be a sort of one-man band. Look at me, look, I can fly. That can only take you so far. This is all about humanity and a select few being able to do something that was a dream that humans have had for probably 100,000 years. I think that's more what we're after. And I shouldn't also lose sight of the fact the R&D does not slow down. I mean, the transition to wing flight stuff, holy crap. I mean, that is mind blowing. Believe me, when you just start going faster and faster and flatten out and then accelerate and turn into a real life banking jet fighter. Again, we put some clips up on YouTube of that. We're only at the beginning of that journey. That's going to be insane.
So that stage 2, that's going to be a very different product, or or that will end up being the existing product?
So the analogy is the F-35 or the Harrier, and there's various bits of those aircraft, well, the Harrier, not the F-35, knocking around my lab. And the way those aircraft fly is they blow air downwards, lift off, and then start accelerating forwards and generating lift from wings. Suddenly you don't need 1,000 horsepower or a thruster ratio of 1.3, which is more than any jet fighter. So what you can do is either go ludicrously fast, and we've done 85 miles an hour so far, and that's just scraping the surface, or you dial the engines down and use, 200 horsepower instead of 1,000 to propel yourself for many, many minutes, 20 minutes. And then when you want to come into land, you crank the power back up, go into a sort of vertical burn, and then come in and land and straight on the palm of your hand. If you want. I've even done that, actually. It's ridiculous. So I mean, that's going to be a whole new frontier. Again, not mainstream transport, but gosh, a lot of really cool niche applications.
And so can we just inquire today and buy one? How does that process work? And what sort of price are you selling them at?
Yeah, we've custom built a couple for people. We tend to prefer to have people come and train with us, and then they can either just hang out with us and we'll make the kit available for them to learn when they want and join us in the race series. But we have custom built 2 now. And the last one we sold was about $440,000, about £340,000, one it's here. But, we can do it, but we prefer to see the whites of the eyes of the person we're doing it for, because just like a very fast motorbike, if you know what you're doing with it, you can poodle around a car park and look after yourself and be perfectly safe. But you open the throttle and you'll be 200 miles an hour into a wall within about 8 seconds, right? And we're just like this will go to 10,000 feet if you want, or higher. And I don't want to be responsible for somebody who didn't quite get that, and then it's our fault because we sold them the equipment. So again, it doesn't have to be dangerous at all. I mean, I cycled across London for 10 years. That was, you know, as in commuting, that was much more dangerous. I've had more injuries doing that than doing this.
Well, I mean, so next, and I can see by our viewers, we've got a few team principals of racing teams here, but you've got a race series that you're going to put together. Tell us where that started, the story behind that.
Well, it's from doing all these events. We've essentially accidentally straw polled probably several million people around the world. I mean, I can't look at the risk of me screwing up the broadcast. Here we go. Look at this. Those are lanyards. But it goes on and on and on, right? That's 103 events in 30 countries, where essentially we've confirmed, if that's possible to do so, that a lot of people really love what we do. So rather than just me or one of my team do that, why don't we have a whole bunch of guys and girls, ideally from other sporting backgrounds? We've got an amazing alumni of awesome people. I mean, even people like Tom Cruise have kind of hung out with us and done stuff with us. Imagine seeing them all take off superhero style and then hare it around a Red Bull Air Race type obstacle course over water, right on the doorstep of every major city in the world. Every major city has water, and you do it over water so it's safe. Worst case scenario is a dramatic looking crash into the water, but no one hurts themselves. And then, you know, whizzing around doing, you know, superhero style flying, and then the first, second, third pull right up in front of the crowd, hover, and then land on the podium, and then mask off, and there is your superhero guy or girl, you know. So you've got the whole podium thing like Formula One style as well. The ridiculous thing is every pilot can travel with their own jet suit as check-in baggage. Even the obstacles, we've got them down to suitcase portable. So I dare say the cost of us putting on an entire race, and the Bermuda one, I can speak from experience of this, is probably less than changing the front wing on a Formula One car. So something tells me that the state something tells me that the state we're going to emerge in after this nightmare of the virus is going to be one of where people sure as hell want to get out or experience stuff out of their living rooms, yes, even just on mobile, but there's not going to be a huge amount of money sloshing around necessarily. And we can deliver the most viscerally intense mobile and broadcast and live entertainment spectacle without it having to cost anywhere near what I know a Red Bull Air Race used to cost. Yeah. And yet the cool thing is it's not losing sight of the fact that these are humans flying. You know, every major sport has a human at the center of it, you know, your guy or girl hero and heroine, and we're making the human most of the action. It's just we're augmenting their capability with a bit of horsepower. So anyway, that's what we're doing. And to be honest, having been in a couple of races we've done behind closed doors with my team, it is the most insane experience. And I've joked this on stage a few times. If for some reason we haven't thought of, this doesn't make a massive spectacle, we're doing it anyway, because it is the most cool thing to do. You are just complete. It's like you're in a dream. You just think, I'm going to go there. I'm going to pull on faster and faster. I feel the airflow. Now I'm going to pull a couple of G around this obstacle, throwing the thrust out ahead of me. Oh, and I'm gaining on my guy, you know, the guy in front of me. And I've actually gained some height, right? I'm going to convert that into a Stuka type swoop down behind them. Then I'm going to dodge their jet thrust and pull around. I mean, it's just insane. It is cool.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds incredible. And I mean, just to let everyone know, we're going to do a Q&A in a minute. So if you're on Zoom, you can comment on the chat or on Instagram Live. But I mean, a few more questions still. But there's the race series. How far is this away from reality then? What's the next steps? And have you got some of the teams on board? And what are we going to see and when?
Yeah, so we were due to do the first big race in Bermuda on the 27th of March. There is a shipping container sitting there with all our obstacles, our race gear, everything's there, apart from the jet suits. Luckily, they're all here. We have all the pilots, all the branding. We had a load of sponsors. We've got, you know, people like PricewaterhouseCoopers in DJI. We're going to film the whole thing. It's all on pause as far as we're concerned. We are ready to go as soon as we're allowed to travel. We might even do it without a live audience if that's going to be more palatable to the island. Just like everybody else, we're a bit on ice. We're funding it all ourselves. It's just it's ready to go. I mean, we could always make it bigger and better. The idea is really to showcase just how spectacular this is, share it out with all the networks that wanted to cover it, and then the next can be even bigger. You know, if we have a bunch of locations even before we launch this, asking us to go and make that the next location. But really, we're taking a leaf out of the motorsport world book, which is, you know, eventually the Holy Grail in a Bernie Ecclestone kind of way is the venue's paying you, the sponsors are paying you, the teams are paying you. You know, yes, there's no shortage of resources to make it into an ever bigger spectacle. But the joy is just 3 guys and girls turning up with jet suits. If we really had to, can be done in a heartbeat anywhere in the world. I mean, we know this because of all those lanyards. This is just we've flown 4 pilots at some events before. It's so scalable up and down. This isn't a punt like Formula E had to be, where you raise billions and just hope to hell that everybody turns up and loves it. And they're doing, they were doing pretty well with what they were doing. This is entirely scalable, which is how we do things. I like, growing with the audience demand. We're a profitable business rather than just punting for what we think people want to see.
Well, I mean, I hope that we're both in a world that's really growing. People want more unique experiences, and people want to be able to see more mad and wonderful things. They're bored of the mundane. And Extreme E now is soon to take off next year, and that's going to be impressive. I think that this is another series that's can rival that sort of entertainment for sure. It really is an entertainment product at the end of the day. So
yeah, and that's a funny thing, because I think people look at it and think, oh, you're going to revolutionize human transport. When can I buy one? Because I want to go across the water to my office the other side of the field or whatever. Or San Francisco Bay is a common one. And maybe, but actually don't dish the entertainment thing. How much of the time, I was going to hold my mobile up, but I'm looking at it. How much of the time do we spend looking at these damn things, and how much of an enormous industry with Google and Facebook and YouTube and all these things, how much of an enormous industry is there around entertaining people on these things? Well, they're always short of content, and they always want to go on interesting, authentic journeys, or consumers do. Well, I think we kind of prove we can do that, and let's use that as a rapid access to resources to keep accelerating the technology to ever greater heights. And then it will leave this trail of usable, capability that will have more mainstream application.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what an exciting journey you've had. I mean, it's fascinating. I think I've got a few questions for you that are coming in. And so, who would be your next dream investor? Is it a Richard Branson or a Elon Musk? And do you need investment?
That's a really good question. So I have had the privilege of meeting Zuckerberg, Musk, Bezos, and Branson, and I'd like to think, but it'd be there for them to describe, I don't want to speak for them, that there's always, in every case, there's been this sort of reciprocal of like, look, I clearly respect what each of those pioneers have done, and there's even more I haven't even listed. And the twinkle in their eye was like, oh, this is really cool. I love it. Now, I love not being needy. We fund all our own things out of the money we generate. I hate having to hold my hand out with one hand like this and the other one with a PowerPoint slide pack. I just don't do that anymore. I like demonstrating.
Well, it seems like you didn't have to do that first time round. So yeah.
No, and I just, maybe I spent too long in the corporate world, but I like demonstrating, probably by a film clip, what we can do and walking away. And if I turn around and they're following me, then brilliant, right? We don't need as a company a whole chunk of investment to carry on our journey. Now, at the same time, it's entirely possible that there are people out there that know, better than we do about how to scale, entertainment and race franchises. And we love the idea of working with, rather than reinventing the wheel, those kind of organizations. And I picked up a lot of those contacts throughout the journey I've been on. If I would be more interested in the expertise than the money, but yes, to be able to scale, I'd almost insist that they wait. If there was an investor wanting to get involved, I almost insist that they wait to watch just how spectacular Bermuda will be, and then say, right, I got it. You've de-risked it. I see all the potential. Let's do this even bigger. And then it would be like, look, have the keys in terms of the entertainment side of this, and go run with it, and just use all the lessons from Formula One or whatever. I'd be entirely up for that. And even with the military stuff, we are not going to be setting up an enormous factory to stamp out 1,000 of these a day or anything, right? There are companies that could do that. I know Lockheed Martin, I know BAE Systems. In the same vein, I'm very happy to license the skills and knowledge we have and let somebody else run with it. If I'm really honest, I want to keep fun at the core of this, and that's doing the entrepreneurial stuff where there is no rule book. It's not copying stuff. It's actually, going and working out, well, how the hell do you make scissor folding wings deploy properly at 80 miles an hour and not make you gain 1,000 feet in 30 seconds? I like those challenges. So
I guess it sounds like you love that entrepreneurial journey. I mean, is there a point when it becomes too big and you're the CEO sat behind a desk, or do you always want to be the chief test pilot? Where's that?
So in alignment with what I said, eventually I see us having a series of divisions, that there is an entertainment division that just goes and copies out look, we know one of the ex-directors, the Red Bull Air Race, right? So, we've hung out with those kind of people, and it's a well-oiled machine. The TED machine behind the TED Talks, for instance, or behind Cisco Live, or behind all the TV things we've done. I've been behind scenes enough that I know that there's a load of very capable skill sets that are brilliant at copying these entertainment or race series kind of formats, and making them reliable and safe and whatever. I am be delighted to have that taken off my hands by an organization that can properly go and copy it. But I know they exist. There's lots out there.
Yeah. So a strategic partner, I guess, is the next step for you.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And when it comes to, for instance, I mean, I was just off the phone. I know the Goodwood folks, for instance. So I know Charlie March there and that whole squad, and we've flown there before at the last Goodwood Festival of Speed. It won't come as a surprise to share with you that one of our client training sites is Goodwood. Because the ambiance of Goodwood is just perfect than coming to a sort of working farmyard where it's cool, but you look too far and you think, yeah, it's a farmyard. So actually having a better training and testing and development site, we're also looking at investing in a better site around here. So yeah, if somebody wanted to get involved with facilitating that, again, that'd be cool, but it's if they want to. It's not like we're going to go bust or not continue if somebody doesn't cough up a load of money. I hate that. I think that's very weak.
What else have we got? So how's the jet stream? Is it how close can they get to each other when they're flying in the race series?
Yeah, really close. So it all depends. If you plot a line out of where the engines are blowing their exhaust, you can go in the way of that if you want. The problem you'll have is that you'll be pushed away, and on top of that, if any of the exhaust goes into one of your engines, you'll probably stall the engine. Other than that, you're fine. You don't want any exposed skin getting in the way, because you'll get you'll lose the hairs on your arm or so, or worse, depending on if you're really close, you get a little bit of a flash burn. So that's why we cover all our skin when we're flying close to each other. But yeah, you can get ludicrously close. I mean, you could get almost as close as I am as this camera face on. So yeah, there'll be some pretty close combative action.
And then what else? So how big are you guys now? How many in your team? How many suits do you have?
So we've got about 12 people in the core team, about 5 or 6 who are like regularly engineering and flying and doing commercial stuff and looking after some of our STEM stuff and some of our media stuff, and a wider collaborative group of about 45 who are things like the former head 35 test pilot from Edwards Air Force Base, retired fast jet pilots. I just did a podcast with a friend of mine who's a airline pilot. I mean, we just seem to, again, very humbling, inspire lots of passion from people in grown-up industries who flock to us and go, oh my God, this is why I became a pilot and I want to get involved. So it's an amazing collaborative group. And in terms of suits, I mean, we've got 5 in the background there. There's a big experimental one there, but there's 3 across the bottom and another one off there. It's all 3D printed, so you can just press print, and we've got oodles of engines hanging around. So it's quite easy to produce more suits.
Oh. Well, again, Richard, today's been fascinating to learn your journey, and I know that we'll have a few people joining you as soon as we can to start to learn how to fly these, and really that'll be an exciting time.
Either through you, otherwise if you go to the gravity.co, just gravity.co website and email through the inquiries form there, I pick all those up as well, and we collect people's names and inform them of when the next dates are, because it's a bit of a, I think in the next couple of weeks we can have people start coming back. I mean, we just don't want to jump the gun with the COVID response. But yeah, get in touch through that. And like I say, there's lots of really cool footage on that Gravity Industries YouTube as well, which we've been throwing out there.
Oh, well, look forward to flying with you soon. Thanks so much. Absolutely. And thanks for joining. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.